Well, to all our audience from all the world, on behalf of the Communication Task Force of the International Society of Neutron Capture Therapy, please welcome to this first ISNCT webinar. I am Andrea Montihius from Argentina. I'm part of the CTF, and I will be moderating this first webinar with Setare Fatemi from Italy. Before introducing our first speaker, I would like Agustina Portu, who coordinates the CTF, to say a couple of words. Please, Agus.
Thank you. Thank you, Andre. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, it's great to see so many friend faces. Well, back in 2020, when the creation of the Communication Task Force was discussed in a EB meeting, we presented 6 tasks, and at that moment we aimed to create and maintain a website, a newsletter, the social media channels, to perform interviews, and also to launch webinars. And as you know, we have successfully performed all the mentioned activities and even more, but the webinars were pending. And the opportunity to synchronically gather is of great importance for us. So I want to express my gratitude to those who made this communication task possible. A special thanks to Andrea and Zeta for designing and planning, and all the members of the Communication Task Force for the brainstorming, and a big thanks to Naonori. The fact that he's our first speaker is not only related to the fact that he's a member of the Communication Task Force, but only because he's a great scientist and professional and a brilliant communicator. And of course, thanks to the authority of the ISNCT for their continuous support, and to all of you, the BNCT community, that make this event possible. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for your words, Agus. And so our first speaker will be Naonori Hu. He is medical physicist at the Kansas BNCT Medical Center at the Osaka Medical and Pharmaceutical University in Japan. He has been working in BNCT since 2016. He commissioned the cyclotron-based neutron source for clinical use and is currently performing ongoing research in BNCT. So please, Naonori, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Andrea. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be the first speaker of this BNCT webinar series. When I was asked to present, I didn't quite have an idea what I should talk about, but given that currently there are many BNCT centers and hospitals opening up worldwide, I thought it'd be nice if I could share some of my personal experience during the commissioning process, and hopefully be some use and be interesting to our viewers. So let me, first of all, let me just begin with my background. So I worked as a radiation oncology medical physicist in Australia for about 6 or 7 years, and mainly I did work in high energy photons and electrons, doing treatment plannings for stereotactic radiosurgery, SBRT, also did a little bit of work in high dose rate brachytherapy work. So I was really much sort of an X-ray person. But then in 2016, I decided to do a PhD in engineering, and I ended up at Kyoto University, where I primarily worked on BNCT dosimetry and neutron measurement and simulation work at both the reactor-based neutron source and the accelerator-based neutron source here at Kyoto University. So I was slowly building my knowledge in neutrons and slowly becoming a neutron guy. And then after I graduated, I was fortunate enough to work in the clinic at the Kansai BNCT Medical Center as a medical physicist there, where so I started begin working in April 2019, and I was told the clinical BNCT would commence around mid 2020. So I had about a bit over a year and a bit to really get used to working in Japan, but also really getting used to commissioning and learning about clinical BNCT. I was quite taking it easy, I guess. I had a bit of a time up my sleeve. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but when August of 2019, I was informed the clinical trial for meningioma would commence. So I had a few months to really get used to working in Japan and really commissioning the system. So it was very, very frantic moment for me. But then in 2020, the clinical commissioning of the accelerator BNCT system began. So we have installed the Sumitomo Heavy Industry cyclotron-based neutron source. And so, of course, there were many, many questions that I asked myself. Where do I start first? What are the sort of protocols? How do I know if I'm doing something right? So there were many, many questions I had asked myself, and there wasn't much information out there because, well, nobody else has really done it. So it was a very daunting task for me, but it was very, very challenging. And at the end, it was become very rewarding journey for myself. And then from 2020, after clinical, the insurance began. So over 3 years, the number of patients have increased for our center. And currently I am, of course, I'm doing clinical BNCT services, but we also perform routine quality assurance education and research and development. So my brief background of who I am and where I come from and where I am at the moment. So I was told there might be some people, some of my viewers might be quite new to BNCT. So I'm going to do a very brief introduction to BNCT. So of course, there are three main major cancer treatment modalities: surgery, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy. And in radiation therapy, there is conventional X-rays, and currently there's heavy ion on proton therapy centers that are opened quite mostly around the world. So conventional X-rays, most types of cancers can be treated with X-rays, and heavy ions are sort of localized solid tumor. And then you have BNCT here, which at the moment it's only approved for recurrent cancer. So what exactly is BNCT? So it stands for boron neutron capture therapy, and it's a treatment that can selectively target cancer at the cellular level. So we inject a boron drug into the patient, and then we irradiate the patient with neutrons, and those neutrons react with the boron and produce alpha particles and lithium ions that travel a very short range. We really cells that boron. So effective high therapy. So very quick principle. So talking for BNCT. So this is a snapshot of the IAEA Accelerator knowledge portal I've taken from. And you can see the number of accelerator-based neutron sources worldwide. And there's a lot of it. There's a wide range of compact accelerators to generator types to spallation types. So it's sort of spread out quite evenly around the world. But if we look at the BNCT facilities worldwide, you can see most of it's sort of focused around Asia and parts of Europe and Russia as well. So so at the moment, this was accessed last year, so I should have accessed a bit more earlier, but the number of BNCT, but there's about 30 or so BNCT facilities, which I'm sure there's a lot more now. And if we focus in Japan, so the insurance covered clinical BNCT services or facilities, there's only 2 in the world currently, and they are both located in Japan. So one is located in the Fukushima prefecture, the Southern Tohoku BNCT Research Center. And there's the one in Osaka, which is the Kansai BNCT Medical Center. So Tohoku is a region in Japan, which is sort of this area. This is called the Tohoku region. And the Kansai is around the Osaka region. This is the Kansai region. So I currently work at the Kansai BNCT Medical Center. So there are many different types of neutron production accelerators using different combination of targets and energy of protons in the type of accelerator. And there's no one perfect answer. There's many different types, and each of them have their pros and cons. But the IAEA recommended values, this is updated quite recently, have these recommended values for epithermal neutron, fast neutron component, gamma ray, etc. So those centers that are beginning to do BNCT would look at these recommended values and aim to achieve these values. So quickly, I'd like to introduce the center that I work at the moment, which is the Osaka Medical and Pharmaceutical University. And so this is located in very close to central Osaka. We're 15 minutes away from Osaka, and it's in the city of Takatsuki. We are in the middle between Osaka and Kyoto. So it's quite a convenient location. And so inside the university hospital, we have this BNCT center. So as I said, we are performing insurance-covered head and neck BNCT since June of 2020. We've treated over 250 patients. This is including the patients for the phase 2 clinical trial of meningioma. And we are currently also working towards getting BNCT for brain approved. So we're working very, very strong on that area. So the accelerator system is called the new QR BNCT system. So this was developed by the Sumitomo Heavy Industries and with collaboration with Kyoto University. And it was approved as a medical device since March of 2020. And it's a cyclotron-based system with 30 MeV proton targeting a beryllium target. And you can see the neutron spectrum compared to the reactor-based epithermal neutron source of Kyoto University reactor. You can see it's a little bit higher energy compared to the reactor. And just some specifications of the system. It accelerates a negative hydrogen ion, and it's the proton accelerated and it hits a beryllium target. And currently the maximum beam current is, the spec is at 2 milliamperes, but we are currently running it at 1 milliampere. And the beam shaping assembly, this was designed in collaboration with Kyoto University. So the researchers at Kyoto University designed this system and back in 2011. And it has a combination of different materials, so lead, iron, aluminium, and calcium fluoride. So different combinations to reduce that neutron energy down to the epithermal range, which is suitable for BNCT. So the new QR BNCT system, so this was approved as a medical device here in Japan since March of 2020, and it composes of course, the cyclotron accelerator, but all the planning system. You obviously need to calculate the dose delivered to the patient. So this is the BNCT program called the new QR dose engine. And it's the GUI interface, or the GUI is the race station treatment planning system, and the back-end dose calculation is done by the FITS Monte Carlo simulation code. Okay, so now going into the beam characterization and the commissioning process of this system. So first of all, where to begin? Well, as I said earlier, there really wasn't no standard protocols or recommendations for commissioning an accelerator-based system in the hospital. So many of the past literatures were based on reactor BNCT. So it was a very new world for all of us here at the center, and basically had to apply my experience from conventional X-ray commissioning days and seek guidance from experts within Japan. So some of the main components to commission the process was, of course, the dose calculation system, which is the treatment planning system. We want to make sure the dose calculated is what's actually being delivered to the patient. So that was a big component where we had to focus on. So the neutron, of course, and gamma ray component verification, neutron beam quality is also a big thing that we need to check. And of course, in the clinic, there's also all these record and verify systems, and we need to do an end-to-end test to make sure the patient can be treated or dummy patient can be treated, and then the records can be saved. So all these tests that we had to do, and I'll briefly sort of touch on all those. So neutron interaction with matter. So in BNCT, there are 4 main dose components that make up the total dose delivered to the patient. And these are, first of all and foremost, the boron dose, which is the main component. And there also are nitrogen components inside the human body, so the thermal neutron and the nitrogen reaction causing protons, producing protons. So this is what we call the nitrogen dose. And then you have your hydrogen dose as well. If you have some fast neutron component colliding with the hydrogen in the human body, producing recoil protons. So these component has to be taken into account as well. And of course, your gamma dose as well. So these are the 4 dose components that we need to really be able to measure or evaluate. And so the top 2, basically, these are derived from the thermal neutron reaction. And then for your hydrogen dose, you have fast neutrons, and you have your gamma components. So these are the 3 components that we really need to experimentally measure to make sure the system, we understand the system correctly. And if we have a look at this is just the simulation done for assuming standard conditions for normal tissue and for your tumor dose. And basically what I want to point out is the boron dose, which is the purple line, particularly for the tumor dose. You can see it's almost greater than 90%. Most of the dose is from the boron component. And even in the normal tissue, about 50%, over 50% comes from the boron dose. So we really need to accurately determine this boron dose, which basically comes from the thermal neutron component. So we really need to measure and determine the thermal neutron accurately, so we can really do a accurate calculation. So one of the I guess the conventional or common method that's been used in throughout history for thermal neutron measurement is using a neutron activation method, using gold foils and irradiating it with the neutron, and then the reaction causing the prompt gamma rays, where you would measure with your germanium detector. So we would place gold foils to measure your thermal neutrons, and we will place sort of indium or aluminium foils to measure your fast neutron component, and we will use sort of TLDs to measure the gamma ray dose rate. But it's really the thermal neutrons that we really focused on, and we measured these inside a water phantom and measured the 3D or 2D dose distribution at different depths and compared it with the treatment planning system. And as I said, for conventional photons and electron radiotherapy, you have external audits, and you have different, well, a lot of different hospitals are doing it. So you're able to get a third-party person to come and to verify your system. But unfortunately, for BNCT, there isn't one currently. So there isn't really anything that you can rely on. You just have to really, once you measure it, you have to understand it and be confident in your measurements. And of course, being the first one to doing it, we couldn't really compare it to other centers. So what we did was we compared it to a different detector system. So we used different methods to measure the thermal neutron component and compare that with our gold foil measurement in our simulation data. to get a bit more of a confidence to say that our system is working or is calibrated correctly. So one of the work that we did with the Dr. Yamamoto at Nagoya University is we did an optical imaging using CCD cameras, using different filters to measure the light emission when the thermal neutron hits the different filters, and then we compare that with our gold foil and simulation results. So that's one of the methods that we did. And so another method that we use is that we used liquid scintillators. This is also with using CCD camera. So so this is some of the work that was done with the Professor Notomi at Kyushu University. So they did a lot of work with liquid scintillators, and we looked at the emission of the light from the boron liquid of the boron inside it, and we measured it with the CCD camera and compared it with thermal neutron too. So we did a little bit of work with that as well. And this is with Professor Yamamoto as well. So we used a gamma camera, pinhole gamma camera, to measure the gamma rays coming from the gold foil. So this is just another sort of secondary method that we used. Unfortunately, the count rate was a little bit low, so the uncertainty was a bit high. But nevertheless, this is another method that we used to verify the thermal neutron distribution inside the phantom. And so with, as I said, with conventional X-rays, there are many different planning systems and many different independent dose calculation programs that are out there that you can use to verify your treatment planning system. But unfortunately, with BNCT, there really isn't quite one available. But we were fortunate enough to be using a separate treatment planning system, which is called the SERA. This is a Simulation Environment for Radiation Applications. So this program was used quite a lot back in, of course, in the reactor days as well, but also with the clinical trials for the brain and the head and neck here in Japan. So we compare the results of our measured and the nuclear dose engine simulation results with SERA, which is a different treatment planning system. And we also developed an in-house Monte Carlo model as well. And we also compare that to the commercially available nuclear dose engine to get a lot more confidence in our commissioning process. And of course, neutron beam quality, this is one of the important measurements that we need to do before we go live. And so we did a lot of work with the in vitro cell studies using different cell lines. And we measured the neutron, the survival rate from there. And then we deduced the RBE from those data. And then just recently, some of the researchers here in Japan, we developed a proposal of recommended experimental protocols for both in vitro and in vivo evaluation. So finally, we have a protocol that we can look at to when we're doing these sort of studies, so we can get sort of like a consistent sort of method to evaluate neutron beam quality. So this was a very big step forward that happened this year. And of course, the end-to-end test is a very important process in the clinic. So what we did was, of course, you want to test the whole process from taking CT of a phantom or a dummy phantom, and then we send that to treatment planning system. And then we send the treatment planning system to the treatment machine, which is the oncology information system. So we would do a dry run of the entire procedure. Of course, we would check the network connections and the DICOM transfer information is correct, and recording the plan information and delivering the monitor units. And if we can actually record that back to the inpatient file. So all these end-to-end tests is very, very important. And when we first did this, one of the major issues that we came across was the connection and the data transfer between the hospital network and the BNCT system. So from the CT to the treatment planning system, and then from the TPS to the PACS, and also from the PACS to the oncology information system. So since it's a very new system, a lot of the transfer in the network was very wasn't set up very correctly in the beginning. So this was a very big process that we had to overcome. So if anyone are looking to start going live, I'll strongly suggest doing an end-to-end test and make sure that every process is smooth and can be performed. And of course, routine quality assurance and quality control is very important after going live. Of course, your dosimetry QA, we perform these on a daily, weekly, monthly, and an annual basis. And your neutron neutron flux, your thermal neutron, fast neutron component, and of course your gamma ray dose rate, we measure those as well. And also your depending on what sort of system that you may have, your machine QA, so your couch movement, couch rotation, laser alignment. So all these things that you would normally do for a conventional photon therapy, you'd also need to do this for BNCT as well. And of course, your treatment planning system needs quality control as well. Of course, if there's a certain version updates, or you will need to sort of run a standard plan to make sure the monitor units don't change. And of course, your data transfer, storage, and data backup is quite important as well. So we were fortunate enough to have a guidebook for routine QA/QC, which was published by the Japanese Society for Neutron Capture Therapy, related to the accelerator-based BNCT using BPA. But unfortunately, this is only in Japanese. But in last year, 2022, Dr. Hirose from the Southern Tohoku BNCT Center published a very nice paper of methodology for QA and QC for dosimetric parameters for accelerator-based BNCT system. So we do have all these new papers and new protocols or recommendations coming out very slowly. So please do check all these out. Okay, so finally, if I've got a bit of time, I'll just quickly like to go through some of the workflow of BNCT for some of those wondering what sort of procedures that might need to be done during the actual patient process. And BNCT, it's a multidisciplinary team. You have a lot of different doctors. Of course, you have ROs, you have your nuclear radiologists. You have also physicists, of course, a therapist and nurse and pharmacist to measure the boron concentration of the patient. We have cyclotron operators. So we have a huge team, a big group of team of people working towards one patient. So it's a big team that we have. So the current workflow, this is just for our center, so it might be different for different centers. But we of course we get a referral from the external institute or hospital, and what we do is we do a pre-plan of the patient, and we use that pre-plan to decide whether we can treat this patient or not. So that's one of the processes that the physicists and doctors are involved in before even seeing the patient. And then once we can confirm that enough neutron flux or fluence can be delivered to the tumor, the patient will come to our hospital and we'll go through a head and neck consultation, and then they will, we will get the BNCT consent. And then we have all different, stage of tumor review board, second opinion, etc. And once the patient is happy to go through with BNCT, they would go through an FDG PET imaging. So this is just a standard FDG PET to check for any distant metastases before treating the patient, which is one of the conditions for insurance covered BNCT. And then we would do the positioning and the CT simulation and the treatment planning process. And then, of course, we do QA in between all that to make sure the system is okayed for clinical use. And on the day of the treatment, normally the patient is admitted to the hospital the day before the treatment, one day before. and then we would do like a rehearsal on that day before the treatment to make sure everything is working okay. And then the patient will get BNCT treatment the following day, and they will be discharged normally maybe 24 to 48 hours after BNCT. So they need to be hospitalized for maybe 3 days, but they can go home straight after that. So this is the Sumitomo system that has both the couch system and a chair system. So depending on where the tumor is located, where the patient and the patient comfort, and whether they want to be sitting to be treated or lying down, we would choose the corresponding system. But normally, most patients are treated using the couch system at the moment. So the PET-CT we would do, as I said, maybe this is performed generally 1 or 2 weeks before the treatment, and so this is just the on the right image here. So this is a special type of scan. It's called an FBPA scan. So instead of using FDG, we use a BPA, which is the drug that we use to treat with the patient. So we can actually image the boron uptake in the tumor prior to the treatment. So we'll be able to screen out the patient where the boron accumulation isn't quite there. So unfortunately, this isn't an approved medical diagnostic scan yet. So so hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to do this for all patients. And then the patient positioning is it's very similar to X-ray therapy, where you would produce a thermoplastic would generate a thermoplastic mask for the patient, and we would do the positioning depending on where the angle of the beam is. We will position and place sort of fixation devices to fixate the patient during the treatment. And then on that day, on the day of the treatment, the boron infusion would begin generally 2 hours before the treatment. And then halfway through the infusion, so generally 1 hour after the infusion begins, the patient will come into the irradiation preparation room, where they will get set up in the same position as they were set up in the simulation process about 1 week ago. We perform X-ray verification, and we take the final blood sample just immediately before the irradiation to measure the boron concentration in the blood. And then we would treat the patient. Then the patient will generally return to the hospital after 24 to 48 hours, generally after the irradiation. So, so basically, to summarize, I know it was a very short talk, but so basically, so for those that are starting or looking to do BNCT and you don't know quite what to do, I say stay calm. It was the same for me. Sometimes I still don't know what to do sometimes. But one of the things is do reach out to the BNCT community, which is the International Society for Neutron Capture Therapy. Everyone's quite very friendly and always happy to help out colleagues and newcomers. And of course, feel free to contact myself. And finally, so BNCT is such an interesting field with so many new things happening every day. We are quite a small group, but our bond is very tight, and I'm very grateful that I joined this community. And so together, let's promote BNCT. So that will be the end of my talk. And thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, please.
Thank you, Naonori, for this impressive talk, actually. And it's very informative, and I guess it's very interesting for our audience. So please, if anyone has any question, please use the reactions to raise your hand so I can give you the time to ask. Don't be shy, please. Ben, please.
Hey, Naonori, thanks for that great summary. Congratulations on your work and on all the papers you've published to tell us about it. That's it's really good that you've done that. I wanted to ask a little bit about the when you're commissioning your treatment planning system. So when we do this in conventional radiotherapy, we can adjust the computational model within the planning system, very many times until it closely matches the measured data. In BNCT, you can't really do that. You have a physics simulation that you're trying to compare against, because your treatment planning system is based on proper physics, which is not like a standard treatment planning system. So did that cause you problems? Did you have to find ways to normalize the data, or did it just come out well for you?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much for those kind words. Yes, the treatment planning system. Well, it's not, as you said, it's not a model. It's a MC full Monte Carlo code. So with the new QA dose engine that's commercially available, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know which way you take it, the user. So we cannot touch the source or any parameters related to the neutron source. So basically, the Sumitomo Heavy Industries would commission or would develop the source or the phase space file, I guess you would call it, for each individual machine. Or there's only 2 machines at the moment, but yeah. So basically, once they fix that, that's basically it. So there's not a lot of adjustments or anything that you could really do to change the model. So I don't know whether you take that as a good way or a bad way, but there wasn't too much adjustments that we could do. So we could only really assume that it was, well, compare it with the experimental measurements and other planning models that we had, but that was basically what we had to, or we could do, yeah.
So you're basically verifying their model. So but actually that makes life, as long as it comes out okay, that makes life a lot simpler. That's good.
Correct, yes. So we're assuming that it's normalized or it's calculated correctly. There's not a lot of work on our end, I guess you could say.
Great, thank you. Thanks, well done. Thank you.
Please, Yang Wang.
Mentioned that you don't have FBPA can provide the TN ratio for your dose calculation. So how do you get around with this situation?
Yes, yes, that's a very, very good question that you raise. And so we currently we use a constant fixed value for all patients, for all, whether it's a different type of cancer or we use the same parameter or that same number, which certainly is can be of course it can be improved. Of course, if we use FBPA scan, we're able to apply that directly to each individual patient. But unfortunately, given the limitations, we only use a fixed constant value.
Thank you, Naonori. Anyone else?
So can I continue?
You have another question, please. Sure.
No, I mean the same question. So does that mean you use the blood boron as the normal tissue concentration and then apply the fixed TN ratio such as 2.5 or 3 to do your treatment planning system?
Correct. Yes, that's right. Yes. So we apply the yes, correct.
But in that situation, that means your constraint for the irradiation time will be determined by the critical organ tumor limit. Is that right?
We determine the radiation time with the organ at risk. Well, for head and neck, it's primarily the mucosal membrane.
Yes.
But depending on the tumor location, it can be a different organ, but mostly it's the mucosal membrane dose. Where we
mucosa, will be your limitation. Okay, thank you.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay, we have still a few minutes. Alex, please, if you have a question.
Naonori, thank you for a nice presentation. And my question is, you mentioned daily QA of the neutron beam, and can you please explain what is the daily QA, if possible? What means do you use? What detectors for the daily QA, especially?
Yes. Thank you, Alex. Sorry, I didn't. I only briefly spoke about this. I didn't go into too much detail. This paper oops, I'm sorry. So yes, the paper by Dr. Hirose has a very nice table of the different types of tests that you would do for daily, weekly, and monthly. And so with the daily, currently the protocol that's published by the ISNCT, we measure the thermoneutron fluence in air, and we use a gold foil detector, and we place that free in air, and we measure the reaction rate from the neutron. So we look at the change in the reaction rate on a daily basis.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Naonori. Please, Ignacio.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Hu, for your very nice talk. I'm sorry that I missed part of them, but I want to ask you a question. I have been contacted by 2 doctors here in Spain of 2 patients with glioblastoma that could be suitable for BNCT. And I would like to ask you who I have to contact, and if you know if there is a current clinical trial for glioblastoma now.
Yes. So currently there isn't one in Japan that accepts overseas patients, unfortunately. We are currently running a GBM clinical study here at our hospital, but it's only for national or Japanese patients, which is very unfortunate. I guess the other option would be to contact, we can contact the CTF team or the ISNCT team, and they'll be able to direct you to possibly some of the colleagues over in Taiwan. They might be able to treat GBM using the Thor reactor, but currently there is nothing in Japan that accepts overseas patients that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. We hope in the future it will be possible.
Yes, hopefully, yes. I too, yes. Very hopefully in the very near future we'll be able to accept patients, but yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Please, Pongar, if you have a question. Meanwhile, there's a question in the chat that says, how many patients have been treated this year and how much is the cost for each patient?
So we've treated just over 100 patients. Oh, sorry, this year. Sorry. So we've treated over 100 patients from April to now. So if we include January, February, and March, it'd be over 100, so maybe 120 patients we have treated. And the cost, so this would depend if you have, well, first of all, it's only available for people with insurance, national insurance in Japan. So the Japanese government will reimburse for 70% of the total cost. And the total cost is approximately, so there's the irradiation fee and you have the drug, the boron drug fee. On average, it's about, well, if you put it into US dollars, maybe about $40,000 US dollars. And the Japanese government will pay for, will reimburse 70% of it. And then there's other forms of insurance. If you have them, it'll further bring down the cost. So ballpark figure, patient out of pocket would be about $1,000 US dollars. If you have Japanese insurance, of course.
Okay, thank you. And the other questions are, which is the dose that you prescribe to the head and neck cancer? Is it 60 grays, it seems? And how
So
long does the treatment take if the prescribed dose is 60 grays?
So it's very difficult to prescribe to. I guess this 60 gray, you're probably asking for tumor dose. It's very difficult to prescribe to the tumor dose in BNCT because of the uncertainty around the boron uptake and distribution. So we prescribe normally to the organs at risk. For head and neck cases, we normally prescribe to 12 gray to the maximum dose to the mucosa. And then depending on the tumor location, of course, if it's a deep-seated tumor, the dose will be lower. But if it's a superficial tumor, your tumor dose will be much higher. So in the pre-planned stage, we aim to deliver about 20 gray X-ray equivalent dose in a single fraction, which works out to be roughly about 60, 70 gray. And the irradiation time is maximum about 1 hour, but on average, maybe about 40 minutes on average.
Thank you. So last two questions, because we are running out of time. One is in the chat. It says, would you please let us know about the B10 drug and its costs? I guess then there is again Stuart and Dan.
Yeah, there's a B10 drug. It's supplied by the Stellar Pharma Corporation, which is a company in Japan. And the cost, I can only say the cost in Japan. I don't know what the cost would be for overseas. So the cost in Japan is for one pack, which is about 300 milliliters, is approximately, I think about $4,000 or something. So that's only in Japan though. So I don't know what it's going to be overseas. So. Okay,
perfect. And then, okay, Stuart and Dan.
Hi, it's me again. So I thought of another one. Are you treating always for your head and neck patients? Is it always a single fraction treatment, or do you sometimes treat a second fraction later, a few months later, or something like that?
So we only do single fraction. Yes. Okay. So we have treated patients like a second time BNCT, but I guess you wouldn't call it fraction. It's maybe 1 year or 2 years after. Unfortunately, the tumors come back. So we are not doing fractionated BNCT because it's what's been approved by the Japanese government is only single fraction. So we need to do some studies if we want to do fractionated BNCT.
Okay, thank you. No, your patient numbers this year are very impressive. So well done.
Yeah, they are exponentially increasing.
Yeah, very good.
So thank you. That is our time. So please, if you have any other question, refer them to the email that Dr. Hu showed in his slides. And of course, you are very welcome to visit the site of ISNCT